Welcome to another episode of What the Falafel podcast. Today we have the most amazing guest. He's a speaker, New York Times best-selling author, and social media superstar with thousands, millions of followers. It's Dov Forman.
A pleasure to be here. Thank you for having me.
I'm so happy to have you. You have just been awarded as being, and I'm going to try to say this fast, the Times Magazine Top 100 Creators of 2025.
Yeah, I mean, quite incredible. I couldn't really believe it. When they first emailed me, I actually thought it was a bit of a fake. You never know, I get loads of these emails. But then they emailed me again. And it wasn't like, do you want to accept? It was, you're on the list of the 100 most influential people on the internet for this year. It's their first time doing this list. If you want to come to New York, you're welcome for the party. If not, that's fine, but you're on the list. Wow. So I went to New York. I got back earlier last week. And it was a really incredible experience with so many creators that I have followed for years and who have hundreds more million followers than me. But I think it's incredible that in this day and age in 2025, when anti-Semitism is on the rise in the way that it is, when there's so much distortion, so much denial, so much misinformation about Jews, about Israel, about the Holocaust online, the fact that they've recognised the work that I've done with my great-grandmother and with countless other survivors and organisations to share the story of the Holocaust and of the Jewish people and of Israel, I think that's quite incredible that they've done that. Yeah. And it's quite important as well because this is bigger than just one person. It's about recognising that this work is more important than ever, and that if we don't do it, that anti-Semitism will continue to rise because of the level of misinformation and disinformation online. And people go viral for all sorts of things online. And the creators on the list were from the food, dance, music sector, from all different areas of social media. But I was one of the only ones who were there for education. And I think it shows people all around the world that actually social media can be a space for important discussions and important posts and educational things too. And I'm so grateful that countless other organisations and museums have followed in the footsteps of my great-grandmother and myself on social media, now also using their platforms to make Holocaust education and all forms of education more accessible online.
It's absolutely so needed now, more than ever, because you started this years ago. And now times are changing. Have you seen a change in how people are responding to you or how the narrative is changing in the last couple of years?
100%. I'll start by, and I'll preface this by saying actually the responses we get from all over the world are incredible. We get so many positive messages, people reaching out to say that my great-grandmother's perspective on life or the posts that I've shared have literally changed their lives and their outlook on life, and messages of hope and tolerance are things that have changed their understanding of hatred in the world, etc. So I'll start by saying that. But of course, we get thousands of anti-Semitic comments every single day. I wake up and I scroll through my Twitter and Instagram and TikTok, and there are the worst messages. People saying, I hope what happened on October 7th to women happened to you. And when my great-grandmother was still alive, they said, I hope it happens to your great-grandmother too. People saying you should be bombed. We're going to come and find you. We're going to come and kill you. And it's incredibly difficult to wake up to those things every single day. I'm very lucky that I have a great support network around me. But certainly since October 7th and in the 21 months now since, it's continued to get worse. And people hoped that with the liberation of Auschwitz in 1945, anti-Semitism had died too. We now know that wasn't the case. It was simply simmering below the surface for decades until these recent flare-ups in the Middle East have happened. And people have used that as an excuse, as a smokescreen, to show their anti-Semitism and to have this pure visceral hatred against Jews come out now in the guise of attacking our nation state. And Rabbi Sachs, the former chief rabbi, and the most incredible person, really, I mean, only if he was alive today, imagine how important his messages would have been. He said it best. He said that anti-Semitism is a virus that continuously and continually mutates. Once they hated us because we were communist, then we were capitalist, then because of our religion and our ethnicity, and now they hate us because of our nation state. And I don't think any words could have been truer for the current situation today.
It's just, I think I say this every time. It's just bizarre to me. And I think what really hit me was, like, you've spoken about this, saying how the Holocaust was a memory, but the Holocaust was a story and you're making it a memory.
Holocaust is there's no word for history in the Hebrew language. There's only word for memory. And why is that? The reason is because history is his story or her story, something that happened to someone else, sometime else, someplace else. But memory is our collective story. And that's what I've tried to do. And that's what I think so many of us need to do as the Jewish people. We need to realize that so much of Judaism is about that memory, is about what happened in the past. And if we want to change the future, we need to use the building blocks from the past. We need to learn, we need to implement those messages. And we can only do that when we take that history, when we take his or her story, someone else's story, and make it our own and put it into our collective consciousness. And the world needs that so much more than ever today as well.
Yeah.
If only everyone could feel and could understand the pain of history and could understand the lessons that we need to implement. So I think there's so much more work to be done in that space.
I remember when everything was kicking off and I just was lying in bed one night and just thought, I just started seeing all these visions of all the stories I've heard of from the Holocaust, and I thought, okay, this could happen. And it was always something in the Holocaust you'd hear about in the past, and it's just becoming more real than ever.
I mean, certainly, firstly, the Holocaust is obviously unique in history, and it needs to stay unique, and it needs to remain sacrosanct in the way that we talk about it as this standout period of history. But certainly there are echoes of the past that are becoming louder every single day, and the shadows are becoming greater. And we can see that on our streets every Saturday. We can see that in schools, on university campuses where Jews are again, and in the arts where Jews are again being pushed to the sidelines, the NHS where Jewish doctors and Jewish patients are often being attacked by others. And it's incredibly worrying because this is the stepping stones. These are kind of the baby steps towards a place where this hatred gets a lot worse, where it turns violent. You know, the gas chambers didn't fall from the sky. Auschwitz wasn't built overnight. This was years, over a decade of basic hatred, of indoctrination, of words that turned into violence, that turned into neighbours turning on neighbours and then informing on those neighbours to the authorities. Eventually that turned into transports to the camps, and eventually that turned into genocide and mass slaughter through systematic persecution, state-sponsored factories of death. Now, I'm not saying that there's going to be gas chambers. There's not going to be concentration camps and death camps against Jews again in Europe. I don't think anyone would say that. But certainly we can see this hatred becoming more violent against Jews. We're sitting here now, and I saw a video only from Friday where 2 Jews were sitting in a cafe in Rubens in town, and someone came up to them just because they looked Jewish, threw their food on the floor, threw their phones on the floor, and started shouting anti-Semitic slurs at them. Now, this is our new reality in London. But I would say that it's easy to complain about anti-Semitism. It's easy to say this is terrible. But what are you going to do to change that narrative?
Yeah.
So I'm not now saying that everyone needs to go out and start becoming these activists on the front line like you and I and others. But certainly people should be using their voice, should be using their platforms in any way they can. You don't need to have 1 million or 2 million followers or tens of thousands of followers. You simply need to use your voice and speak to people. And we saw during COVID how much one person can make an impact in the world, where if you had COVID, you can infect one person who can infect 3, who can infect another 3. And that R rate, as they called it, was exponential.
Yeah.
It's the same with education. All you need is to change one person's mind, and that one person will go out and will change another person's mind. And that truth can go way beyond what you ever imagined. And that's what we need more young Jews to realize, because no one else is going to speak up for us. And again, it's easy to complain. And yes, we find ourselves in difficult times, but there is light at the end of the tunnel. But we have to grab that light, and we have to realize, well, how are we going to get there? Because anti-Semitism will go down at the end of this war, but it won't go back to the levels that it was before October 7th. It's kind of now entrenched in British society, in our institutions. So what are we going to do about that?
There's a couple of things that you're saying that I'm thinking I've got to ask you about, because on the one hand, you're saying we've got to speak up about it, but I know I posted about like a couple of things and I've lost, and I know everyone's having this. They lose people. So it's almost like the people that you actually need to reach and that need to hear this don't want to hear the story. So there's that. But then I also want to ask you, before I forget this, you speak about how, and you said how the Holocaust has to remain an event on its own. And it almost like you can't compare. But then people are now saying, like, we're seeing the same things happen. So how do you keep it standing alone? Why do you think it needs to stand alone? Are you worried do you think anything could happen where we're going to end up like that? And then also, how do we speak out to the people?
Yeah. I'll take them in reverse order. So how do we speak up to people? I think it's difficult to break out from our echo chambers, but there may just be one person. You're never going to convince these pure anti-Semites who sit at home all day, these keyboard warriors who attack all the Jewish creators with their anti-Semitism. Those are the people that we don't really need to focus on at the moment. One day we do, and certainly there's a lot to be said about those people. But the people that we need to reach are these people in the middle who are either staying silent, the silent majority as we call them, or people who kind of might have been swayed by watching BBC News or whatever other mainstream media it might have been, or scrolling through their Twitter feeds. I mean, if I was someone who didn't really know much about the Middle East and was just scrolling through my Twitter feed, seeing these photos, which are either AI or are real, these terrible devastation kind of images every single day, I might also be kind of tweeting some of the stuff that others are, not the anti-Semitic stuff, but just the people who are kind of in the middle, who get swayed one way or another. So it's those people that we need to reach out to. And the way that the algorithm works is that even if people don't follow you, actually, if it gets shared enough and it gets liked, then actually these people might see it. So we need to keep going. And sometimes it can seem like kind of an endless task and something which just isn't going anywhere, but actually just keep going. And actually that can have an impact. And I've seen that myself. And again, people might say, well, you've got 2 million followers. It's easy for you to say. I started out like everyone else in my bedroom during COVID, posting when I had 0 followers, and one tweet to the next goes viral. And I've taken that one tweet, and for 6 years I've been running with it. That one tweet could have literally remained that, just one viral tweet. But life throws opportunities at you, and it's about how you turn those accidents into opportunities and how you become that person who then continues to speak out. And it's not easy. And I sympathise with every single person who finds that difficult, because I know how hard it is. Yeah. But we have to do it. Now, the other question about how we kind of keep the Holocaust unique in history, you could take it from both sides. One, when the anti-Semites say what's going on in Gaza and everything now is a genocide and is a Holocaust, or the Israel are committing war crimes like the Nazis, etc. Firstly, they're doing themselves a disservice, because obviously no one wants to see death, no one wants to see destruction. That's the byproduct of war. But certainly, actually, if they spoke in normal terms and were actually truthful about what's going on, that this is terrible, people are dying who are innocent, but also terrorists, and that's, again, the byproduct of war, then maybe more people would sympathise, especially Jews, with their message, instead of accusing the Jews of the very thing that Hamas tried to do on October 7th, which was a genocide. If they could, they would have murdered every single Jew. So firstly, they do themselves a disservice. Secondly, when people accuse you on that side of the fight of things which once happened to us, like a Holocaust, like the Nazis, etc., often what they're trying to accuse you of is the very thing that they are. And that's something, again, which we need to remember, that the crimes that they did, again, what Hamas did on October 7th was trying to do a genocide against the Jewish people. If they could have murdered every single Jew, they would have. Yeah. That's the truth. In terms of the Jewish side, we need to be careful about our language. I so often say this on social media. What's happening now is terrible. October 7th was the worst tragedy against the Jews since the Holocaust, but it wasn't the Holocaust. There are echoes of the past. There are shadows of the past. We need to be worried. But London isn't 1930s Germany. It's not. There aren't state-sponsored laws against Jews. We still can go to university. Yes, we're being pushed to the fringes. Yes, anti-Semitism is terrible. I'm on university campus. I see it, but it's not the Holocaust. It's not 1930s Germany. And I think we just need to be careful about our language, because also, again, like the pro-Palestinian side, it does kind of stop certain people from sympathising with us and from standing with us. And also it just cheapens the Holocaust, and that's not right. It cheapens the memory of the 6 million. And it just kind of, again, it doesn't actually support our cause. I mean, people do it meaning well, and that's fine. Yeah. But I do think we need to be careful. And I'm also, by the way, I've made this mistake as well. Sometimes you get overreacted, and it's so difficult. I mean, we're in our own chamber of seeing this anti-Semitism every single day, day in, day out. People like us, creators online, we get these comments, and then you see these photos of spray paint in the Jewish community, or this shul was vandalized, or this store had someone attacked outside for being Jewish. Yeah. This Jew was attacked at a train station. It kind of is all encompassing, and every single day it gets worse. But again, we do kind of need to differentiate. But certainly it's getting worse, and it could get to a point like that. But so we need to kind of try and stop it in its tracks. Well, that's what I think people are worried
about, is that we've grown up, and I know we have this education, we have it ingrained in us that our people went through these atrocities, and then we see all of this stuff on social media that's almost pointing to like the very, 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 very start of it. So whilst it's not saying that now is then, I think a lot of people are a little bit scared that the Holocaust is popping up in 100%. Our minds.
And also, I mean, rightly so, we're an incredibly anxious group of people given all the persecution that we've suffered throughout history. I mean, it's not just the Holocaust, it's the pogroms, the inquisitions, the expulsions of countries. I mean, that's the Jewish story. But by the way, we should look at that history and realise that the people that tried to destroy us 2,000 years ago, the people that tried to destroy us in medieval Europe, the people that kicked us out of the countries, the people that tried to commit or that did commit the Holocaust and murdered 6 million of our own. They're no longer here, but we are. We survive. We will continue to survive. We have a nation state now where we could all run to if we needed to. Hopefully we won't ever have to. But we're here to stay. They're not. And so I think we should have hope as well for the future.
Oh, amen. That was beautiful.
I think my great-grandmother's story, by the way, shows that more than ever. And people, if they haven't, should look at my great-grandmother's messages of hope. She survived the worst crime against humanity, the greatest hell on earth. And she didn't just survive, she thrived. She had 10 grandchildren, 38 great-grandchildren. In her final year before she passed away, a great-great-grandchild, 5 strong Jewish generations. And she always said that Jewish babies are the best revenge against the Nazis and the anti-Semites. And she's right. And again, her message was just one of survival, that no matter what happens to us, we will still be here. And her mother, her youngest sister, her youngest brother were murdered in the gas chambers of Auschwitz on the 9th of July 1944, together with over 100 members of her extended family, 14,000 people that day in Auschwitz. But she kept her hope. She went through life with an incredible twinkle in her eye for life and a great smile. And again, just to tell people that that's the Jewish story. And yes, we have so much hatred against us, and no one can ever explain why there's anti-Semitism and why they hate us and why it's the oddest form of hatred. But we're here and we're here to stay.
It's big. But we can't, I mean, you mentioned Lily, your great-grandma, and we can't have you on the podcast without talking about her and her book even more and your story with her. Because I've read the book. I said, I am reading it from start to finish. And I was gripped. The way that you wrote it, and I'd love to hear about the writing process and how you did it, but it was absolutely, like, I didn't want to read it, felt I had to read it. It was harrowing, but it was powerful. There was so many emotions in it. And I remember I didn't realise how much I'd been gripping to the story until she got liberated. I promise you, I'm not exaggerating, I was in tears. And it was almost so sudden. Like, they were on this death march and all of a sudden they came in and they're like, you're free.
I mean, it's an incredible story. I think the death march is something which kind of a lot of people don't really learn about. And that's actually the first thing that exposed me to this story and where I came into it with my great-grandma, for those who haven't read the book or seen much of our story. My great-grandmother was liberated. She was sent to Auschwitz in July 1944, spent 4 months there until October, was then sent to a munitions factory in Germany, sub-camp of Buchenwald, concentration camp, where she made weapons for the Nazis, bullets. She often put the bad bullets in the good pile and the good bullets in the bad pile. She speaks about her own resistance.
She's brilliant.
By the way, that counts as an important myth, which is that the Jews were lambs to the slaughter. People often say the Jews in the Holocaust, they didn't resist. Obviously, they didn't fight back against the Nazis when they were weak, etc. But, I mean, some did. But they fought back in their own way, and they had their own resistance. And it's like Jewish people today. I think we have our own resistance in an ever more polarised and anti-Semitic world. So for my great-grandmother, that was that bullet scene which I described. And then she went on a death march, 5 days, no shoes, no water, no food, marching through Germany so that they could take them to a forest and kill them, or keep them alive for a bit longer and transfer them to another camp. And suddenly the Americans come out of nowhere, a group of American Jewish soldiers, and liberate her and a few hundred other Hungarian girls from this death march. And one of the Jewish soldiers wanted to give her a message of hope, something that my great-grandmother would remember him for. And so he's looking for a piece of paper, he can't find it, he pulls out a German banknote and writes on the side 10 words of hope. And he says, the start to a new life, good luck and happiness. And he didn't sign his name, he just signed his position in the army. And 76 years later, during COVID, when I had just started learning about my great-grandmother's testimony in more detail, I said to her, show me some things which I can learn and share on social media with the world so that they can understand your testimony. And she pulls out this banknote. And I said, wow, what is this? And firstly, it was the first moment that I had ever realised what the liberators did for the survivors. And I actually learned more about the death march. But also, it was incredible to me to realise that my great-grandmother had kept this for 76 years in pristine condition at the back of her cupboard because it meant so much to her and she had never shown anyone.
Yeah.
And so I shared it on social media, and I remember joking with her that we'll manage to find the soldier in 24 hours. Within 8 hours, 2 million people had seen the tweet, and within 24 hours, we did find this soldier and his family. He had passed away a few years earlier, but we managed to connect with his family, and that made international headlines across the world. And that was the first moment, again, that I realised that with the kind of click of a button, the blue button on Twitter that said post, I could reach millions of people. And again, I ran with that, and that's how I got to where I am today, and that's the backstory behind the book and all of our success, if you want to call it, on social media. And where I realised that actually survivor testimony has a place on social media. It was at the era when everyone was going viral on Twitter and TikTok during COVID for doing the most stupid things, and so I realised we can do this too. And then a few months later, I said to my great-grandmother, people are dancing on TikTok and they're getting millions of followers and views. We should do it too. And so she said, what is this TikTok? So I showed it to her.
Wait, hold on. When you said we should do it too, were you going to get her dancing?
Not dancing.
Okay.
So I said to her, we could post your story there too. And she said, what is this? So I showed it to her and she said, I'll do it, but I'm not dancing. And so we didn't dance. We posted these incredibly important videos and videos of hope. And people also wanted to see kind of how she lived her daily life, how a survivor continues. And what strikes me so much is when you meet hostages today that have been through a very similar, not the same, but a very similar hell for hundreds, 484 days, for example. Keith Siegel, who I met last week, when you meet them, it's very similar in the way that they continue and they have such a purpose to share their story, but also people just want to learn about how they're continuing with their daily lives now, today, because there's something in that survival, which I think grips us all. And these are people who we've followed their story and we've prayed for them for hundreds of days. So, I mean, it's kind of a bit of a parallel, which I find interesting now when I meet these hostages to share their stories. But back to the book. Look, I think we wanted to make it as accessible as possible to all people, and we wanted to make people feel that they were on that journey with my great-grandmother. So we introduced them to all the characters, her siblings, her parents. We made sure that we followed their journeys as well, but also we wanted to follow all three of my great-grandmother's lives, if you will. Her life before the Holocaust, so that you understood what life was like and what was lost. Her life during the hell of the Holocaust, and the greatest human tragedy on earth ever. And then her third life, which was the life after liberation, which was firstly the moment where she could actually begin to understand and comprehend what she'd been through and the pain that came with that, but also where she could rebuild, where she went to Israel, where she was there when the day that Israel was created. She often says she was in the greatest hell, but in the greatest miracle ever. And then also when she began to rebuild a family here in London in 1967. And I think that's kind of why the book gripped so many people, because you get that full life story. And it ends on her 97th birthday in my home, surrounded by her whole family. And since she passed away, I wrote another chapter about her last 3 years, her 97th to her 101st year. And that, I mean, I'm so glad that hundreds of thousands of people across the world have read the book and have felt inspired and have learned from it. And again, there are just so many important messages in there, not least about valuing the small things in life and also the bigger things like family, but also these messages around hatred. And there's one quote which I always share from my great-grandmother, which is that no matter what race, religion, ethnicity you are, when you cut us, it hurts for anyone, and we all bleed the same colour, and that colour is red. And that's just a message which I think the world needs today more than ever.
Yeah, 100%. She's an amazing woman. That strength and how she took her two sisters. That was almost like her, like, survival, how she survived 100%. By looking after her two sisters and having that strength. And how have your family been with it, and what sort of their journey and understanding her story and how it lives on?
Let me talk first about her sisters. So my great-grandmother made two promises, which we speak about in the book. One is to her father when he passed away in 1942. She often said he was so lucky to pass away at such a young age in 1942, though, because he had a grave, and I've been to visit that, and so did she. Whereas her mother, her younger sister and younger brother who were murdered in Auschwitz don't. Their ashes are scattered around Auschwitz and the rest of Eastern Europe, wherever they may be. And so she says how lucky that was that he passed away, but she promised him on his deathbed that she would look after the rest of the family. And she often said that she wasn't able to do that for her youngest sister and youngest brother and mother, but she was with her other two sisters that went through Auschwitz with her, then the munitions factory, then the death march, and they then moved to Israel and Switzerland together. She then moved to the UK, but they lived together in Israel for many years and stayed in touch right until the end. And so she succeeded in part of that promise. And the other promise she made herself was that if she survived, she would tell her story. And I don't think any promise ever in the world has been so profoundly fulfilled as hers.
Yeah.
Her story reached over 1 billion people on social media. She set up the Holocaust Survivor Centre in the UK. So many politicians learned about the Holocaust because of her. So many young people across the world and the country learned about the Holocaust because of her. And she went on TV shows across the world, wrote articles, obviously the book. So, I mean, that promise, when she made it, when she was in the hell of Auschwitz, I don't think she even thought she would survive, but let alone that, and then rebuild a family. But to share this story in the way that she did in her latter years of her life, I mean, it's just incredible. In terms of my family, we all knew that she was a Holocaust survivor. She had the number A10572, a permanent reminder of the Nazis' crimes against humanity, engraved in her arm. And so we all saw that growing up. She'd never told her children, really, though. They just knew, but they never discussed it at home. And that caused a lot of intergenerational trauma, which we speak about in the book, but also is probably a topic for another time, because there's so much to speak on that, about the trauma that's passed through generations with survivors. But my mother's generation, the grandchildren, they all knew, and she had already started going out and sharing her story to teachers and to school children and to classrooms. When I was growing up, she used to come to my primary school the whole time, especially around Holocaust Memorial Day, and share her testimony. And it was incredibly difficult to hear that as a young child, that this is what your great-grandmother went through. But actually, she often gave a cover story. It's like, this is what happened during the Holocaust. I was in Auschwitz. This is what happened in Auschwitz. But it was never those raw details about what happened to her.
Yeah.
And it was only during COVID, when I began interviewing her for months on end, where I took these videos and wrote the book, that I began to actually understand that this is the hell that she went through. And there are some incredibly, firstly, sick stories, but also incredibly difficult stories to hear from your great-grandmother. And it's not easy to have to sit there and hear your great-grandmother share these things. And I mean, this is quite graphic, but like, one of the stories, which I think was actually too graphic to go in the book, was she spoke about a baby that she saw when she had just arrived in Auschwitz. And forgive me for saying this, but I think it's important, that a Nazi threw in the air and used it as target practice, and killed the baby in front of them. And it's not easy as a 16-year-old to hear, which I was at the time, to hear your great-grandmother talking about these things. But I'm, in a way, so glad and honoured to have that opportunity with her, to hear these stories, to have become her witness, and to be able to share these for posterity, and to have written them down, and that millions, hundreds of millions, over 1 billion people across the world have seen it. And it's so important, because the number of survivors are dwindling, those eyewitnesses, and we need to become their witnesses. Elie Wiesel, the Nobel laureate, a Holocaust survivor himself, Romanian born, said it best: when you listen to a Holocaust survivor, you become their witness. When you listen to a witness, you become the witness. And we need to take those torches that the survivors lit so many years ago, and we need to take those torches and become the bearers of it, and pass it on to as many people as possible. And that's always my plea to people across the world, that when you read the book, when you listen to a TikTok of my great-grandmother, when you hear me speaking about her story, that you just take one snippet and you make that your own, and you put it into your memory again, back to that discussion we had earlier. And you pledge that wherever you meet someone that needs to learn about the Holocaust, that hasn't learned, that doesn't know, that clearly hasn't learned the lessons of the past, you say, well, no, you need to learn, because this is what happened to Lily Ebert, this is her story, and this is where hatred can lead when we leave it to go unchecked and unchallenged. And again, that would just be my plea to people, to learn those stories. It doesn't have to be my great-grandmothers. It could be any Holocaust survivor that you might know, that you might have met. And it's not just about the Holocaust survivors. Again, back to the hostages today. When you meet them, when you hear their stories, just try and remember one thing, so that you can go out to someone who clearly hasn't learnt, and you can tell them what happened, and you can become their torchbearer, because we so need it in today's world.
How do you support yourself, and how have you supported yourself mentally through immersing yourself in these painful stories?
It's a good question. I mean, I keep very busy. My great-grandmother too, I mean, I think the way that she dealt with it was just going out and speaking, and sharing these stories. And I think I just follow in her footsteps of trying to do this as much as possible, and spending as much energy as possible to make videos and go out to schools and go out to universities and go on podcasts and news outlets and share her story. I'm very lucky that I have a great support network in terms of my family and friends around me, especially with the anti-Semitism that we get, which is often very difficult to receive. But also I look at it the flip side, which is that actually you're doing something right. If you trigger these anti-Semites, it means that they're kind of worried about the work you're doing. So that's also something I would say to young people who are going about this journey and who are worried about the anti-Semitism they're receiving. Obviously, it's not easy, and it's incredibly painful to get this stuff, but just know that you're doing something right if they're hating on you. But no, I'm incredibly lucky that my mum and the rest of my family are very supportive. And I try to ignore the hate, but also, I mean, it's not easy to sit there and hear these painful stories every single day. But like I as I said, my family, friends are incredible. So
That's what we all need. That support network.
exactly. But look, the Jewish community is one big family.
Oh, I love it.
And we're all there to support each other. So especially in this
100%.
space.
But do you know what strikes me about you and everyone that I've spoken to where I've said, oh, we've got Dov on, or I'm reading the book and I'm telling them about the book, and everyone is saying, oh, the young boy who's so young and so young. How have you just created this entire, not anyone can go on TikTok and social media and share the stories.
But they can, that's the thing. It's incredibly accessible.
But not anyone can do it and become a speaker like you can, because you're very special. As in, you've got this voice, you're very, and here I am trying to find my words to say, you're very eloquent, you're very well spoken, you've got this wealth of information. Have you been media trained? Have you been bred for this? And you started so young. Like, what has been your journey into speaking so well?
Well, look, I've always enjoyed public speaking, and I've also always enjoyed history and read a lot about the Holocaust and other periods of history. And growing up as the great-grandson of a Holocaust survivor, I always wanted to know more. And I think my mother is the same in terms of she was the first person in the family ever to ask my great-grandma about her Holocaust tattoo one day when my great-grandma was giving my mum a bath.
Was it the bath? Yeah.
And she kind of said, well, what's that? And so I kind of think that I follow my mum's footsteps there, where I would also ask my mum, my great-grandmother, these questions and ask her more. And some people were shocked, oh, you mustn't ask that. But actually, my great-grandmother was happy to share these stories, especially as time went on. And she realised that these are the last moments and there aren't many survivors left. And one day she would unfortunately pass away too, which she did in October. I haven't been media trained. I just kind of ran with this. I gave a TED talk and I was thinking, what should I title it? And I called it The Accidental Game Changer, because this really all was an accident. I never set out to become this game changer or someone who cuts through and someone who speaks on podcasts and all over the world and is on the Time 100 list. I mean, who would have thought when I started all those 6 years ago. But look, I just try and run with it and do as much as I can and learn more stories so that I can help more people understand. And it's not easy, but I think the more people you speak to, the more information you get. And so it's kind of a self-fulfilling cycle where the more I've become involved, the more survivors I meet, the more stories I get, and the more knowledge I understand and acquire about this subject, which equips me to go on more podcasts, and then kind of it just continues. But again, I guess it's a lot to do with my support network. My family have been incredibly supportive, and my school when I was still in school doing this during my A-levels and GCSEs. So I'm incredibly thankful to all of them.
Are you still at uni now?
Yes.
What are you studying?
I'm going into my third year at UCL. I study history.
Okay.
So that's also how I kind of get a lot of knowledge about the subject. But I do a lot of Central Eastern European history. So Stalin, Soviet Union, Habsburg Empire, Hungary, and of course the Holocaust, the Nazi Germany.
Oh, I have to be honest, history I struggled with the most. So
it's not
hats
easy.
off to you.
It's a lot of reading, but I enjoy it. So.
Well, that's the main thing. I feel like when you enjoy something, it kind of propels you forward.
Exactly.
But what stood out to me as well with this TED Talk is you mentioned that you had ADHD, but here I am sitting watching someone that is just so calm and still.
It takes a lot of it took a lot of practice over the years, and I used to be very ADHD. I've kind of learned to channel it and learn to deal with it. But during school, I had the record in my school for the most attentions ever.
Oh no!
I gave
really?
When I left school, I gave an assembly called From Detention to Downing Street, because just before I finished school, I was given this award by the then Prime Minister Boris Johnson, called the Points of Light Award, which recognises kind of incredible volunteers in their community. But it was like a funny moment for me, because in school they kind of viewed me as one thing and then out another. But again, it's like a message to all people. ADHD is so often seen as a bad thing, and so many times during school they were like, "Oh, this disruption's terrible," and they use the word disruption and someone who disrupts the whole time, and they kind of view that in a bad sense, but I see that as a good sense. It's about thinking outside the box. How are you going to cut through? How can you make noise in the right way? How can you channel your energies in the right way? And I channel my energy to do this. And it's not always easy. Sometimes I just sit down and I have a block the whole day and I can't concentrate, and it's the same in uni, but you learn to kind of channel that and to deal with it, and that comes with age. But
that's impressive.
It took a lot of practice, especially writing the book.
When you say practice, what does that look like?
Well, not practice, but just kind of a lot of trial and error.
And
I was on medication for a lot of my childhoods, which I'm not anymore, and that suppresses other things. But yeah, I guess you kind of just learn throughout as you grow up, what works, what doesn't. Stuff like sleeping at the same time every day for my ADHD I found really helps. But it was also just finding something which you enjoy and that you can do every single day, which allows you to put all your efforts and energy and concentration into. And for me, this has been social media and Holocaust education and Judaism and Israel. For others, that might form other things. But actually, I find it quite impressive that actually most of the business leaders I meet in the world, and I meet a lot of people. I've spoken to CEO of Google, I've spoken at Oxford and Cambridge University. A lot of the most impressive people I've met are like people who have dyslexia, ADHD. That's not to say everyone. There are many impressive people who I've met who are just intelligent and just don't have any kind of other things. But a lot of these people channel it in the right way, and it allows them, as I said, to think out the box and to disrupt in the right way.
I think that's beautiful, though. I really do, because I've worked in mental health previously, and it's almost like become your superpower. And I love how you're saying, like, if you channel it, you can become a top 100 creator.
Yeah, I mean, firstly, a lot of the people on the list have like ADHD and they speak about it. But yeah, I mean, I actually don't really speak about this so publicly. I spoke about it in my TED Talk because that's what my TED Talk was about. But like, I think this is the first podcast I've probably spoken about it on. So that's why I'm kind of a bit taken aback as to what to answer. No, it's fine.
I think for me especially, I love these stories of, identity, but overcoming things that might appear to be problematic, but actually they're not.
No,
and it's become an impressive thing.
For so many years, people did see it as problematic, and it was incredibly difficult for my parents, and again, my teachers too. But again, these are all people who helped me and who helped me kind of understand different coping mechanisms for it. And I think that message for anyone with ADHD, not that I'm so qualified to speak about this, but is like, look, sometimes people will and rightly say that this is terrible and you're disrupting and you're being annoying and you're being too fidgety or whatever it might be. But once you learn to channel that, actually you can use it to do incredible things and to kind of focus and fixate on one thing, and that can lead to maybe, not that I'm so incredible and have done incredible things, but to do and to go on to kind of, as you say, superpower, if you want to call it, but to do whatever you want in life.
Yeah, that's great. And you talk about your support network all the time. Like, what's your family life like? Do you still, when you're not at UCL, are you living?
I live at home.
Campus? Oh, you do? Okay.
My sister's married, so she doesn't live at home. My brother doesn't live in the UK anymore, so it's just me at home. So it's great. I spend a lot of time with my parents, and they're great. My mum is like an incredible person. She's very young at heart, and she is just very young. She's a grandma, but she's very young.
And from your sister?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
And my dad also is just an incredible person with so much wisdom and has taught me so much and is an incredible mentor to me. And is also always there to keep me measured.
In what way?
Well, I mean, like, he's always trying to stop me, I don't know, becoming, you meet incredible people and you're on these lists and you might think you're so incredible.
Start getting
but
a bit
just,
too big for your boots?
Well, I don't think so, but my dad likes to keep me very, very measured and with my head to the ground, which is good. And he also, a lot of the knowledge I know is because of him. And the books I read, etc. And he often sends me articles which, have you read this? You should read this. So no, it's very helpful.
That's great. I love hearing family stories. So you've got your mum, your brother, sister, dad.
Yeah.
What was Jewish life like for you? Like,
So we grew up quite religious, very Zionist. We went to school which taught us Hebrew, fluent Hebrew, and so we speak Hebrew. And that was always a big part of our family. Lots of my cousins live in Israel. We would go there every summer. We go many times a year. And religious life was very, we live in Golders Green, the heart of religion in London, other than Stamford Hill maybe. And we grew up with it as a central part of our family. Chagim, festivals, a great time in our house. My great grandmother was the queen of our family. She always used to come for Shabbats and for Shabbat meals. Friday night dinners were incredible. All our cousins, we have a big family. And then like festivals and Hanukkah, whatever it might be, Pesach, all these different festivals which we'd be in London for, would be an incredible time in our house. And I credit a lot of kind of the Jewishness that I have to the way that my parents brought us up. It was never like, you must do this, but they just led by example. my dad grew up in a bit of a less religious household. My mum grew up in Golders Green and stayed there. And so I think they both really appreciated it and value religion, and it gives incredible purpose. And not everyone is religious, but I think just religion as itself. And I think that's what kind of differentiates Judaism for a lot of other religions, is that you don't have to be religious. You could be the least religious person, but you're still very much part of the community. And that community means so much to us. To all Jews, and I think that's something which the world is longing for at the moment: belonging, community, friendship, and I think like Shabbat is just the most incredible time, whether you keep it or not. Just the fact that like a Friday night dinner or Shabbat dinner in a world of the social media era where so few people actually interact with each other, and where families during the week, because everyone's at work, don't eat dinner or lunch or whatever it might be together, to have that time once or twice a week, whatever it might be, to just switch off for a few hours, even if you don't, but just to be with your family, I think it's incredibly special. And that was like formative in my life, especially time with my great grandmother around that Friday night table, where she would sit there with all the cousins and with my family. It was incredibly special, and it made us so close with her. And people often say, well, you're the great grandson who did the TikTok and the book with her. Did everyone else have an incredibly close relationship with her? And the answer is yes, we did. And that's because whilst I might have been the one who did this publicly, we all spent a lot of time with her. And again, every Friday night we would spend a few hours with her having dinner. And those were like incredibly special moments.
How do you feel as a content creator, turning your phone off for 24 hours? Do you ever feel like you're going to miss anything?
Well,
have you ever missed anything?
You often miss things, but that's part and parcel of the job, I guess. Well, when you're religious and doing it, it's not easy. And also like, especially when you post something which is going incredibly viral and you want to see kind of the updates. Also when something's happening in the world, like if there's a hostage release, which often happen on a Saturday, and you miss it, you come back on a few hours later. But also it's nice to kind of just switch off in this social media era where it's all encompassing, and all day you're refreshing and seeing what the updates are and what you need to post. And I like it. I mean, it's a good break. And again, when you get so much anti-Semitism, it's nice just to not think about that for 25 hours. But it's not easy, and definitely it harms the algorithm. But that's part of that's part of it. And also, I've grown up. I don't know anything different, so for me it's quite easy. I mean, I sympathise with anyone who's becoming more religious and suddenly has to stop doing things on a Saturday. Can't imagine how difficult that is. But for me, I grew up with it, and I love going to synagogue on a Saturday and seeing my friends and spending time with them too. And then Shabbat lunch. It's great. It's no other community has this. And I think it really is very special. I speak to like non-Jewish friends or colleagues at work, wherever it might be. And often they're quite jealous. Like, this is incredible. I get to go and see my friends and spend time with them, and without social media, and go and play football in the park, wherever it might be. So I love it.
See, I grew up where I didn't go to a Jewish school, but I had a lot of friends going out Friday night, and it was just ingrained in me to stay in for Shabbat dinner. But I did sort of think, well, what are they doing?
Sometimes you miss out.
I was losing out. But I have started taking on Shabbat. I never did it. Like, we'd have Friday night dinner, but then Saturday would just be a weekend. And I love it. There's something really nice, and I look forward to it. I never thought I would be one of these people. And we had Elaine Chaya, I don't know if you know her, on the podcast, and she was talking about how it's like a digital detox. It's brilliant. And I really have seen that.
100%. By the way, some of my best ideas also come on Shabbat. In terms of like, especially when the book, it like just gave me a day to switch off, and then to think about what you might change and what you might do differently. And it's always good to just take a step back from life and just let life run its course for a day and then come back to it.
A breather.
Yeah, exactly.
When you were, I actually wanted to ask you this, how did you write the book? Because it was it was her story. Like, how did you physically write it?
So I interviewed her for about 3 months, every single day for a few hours. And some days she just couldn't do it. And some days it was too difficult. And some days you'd start and you'd get one question done and that was it. And we had to be incredibly sensitive, because every single time that she had to tell these stories, she had to relive it and had to go through that again. So that wasn't easy for her. And again, as her great grandson, that wasn't easy to see someone literally closing their eyes and going back to that place. It's not easy to ask those questions either. So we did that for about a few months, then transcribed all the interviews, picked the best parts, saw where we needed to get more information, either from her or from historians. Historians then looked through all of it, from Yad Vashem, from the United States Holocaust Memorial Museum, from the Auschwitz Memorial Museum, all different places, added information, suggested changes, whatever it might have been, and then copy editors made it in her parts into something which read a bit better. And then my parts, I wrote my chapters to be a sandwich between that story. So the first chapter is me finding that banknote, tweeting it, and then ending that chapter by basically saying, tell me your story. She then tells a story until the banknote, until the end of liberation. I then come back in, I speak about modern anti-Semitism, the use of social media, Holocaust education as it is today, the rise of distortion and denial, goes back to her story until the end of her life, and then I come back to speak about her 97th birthday, the end of that story. And then again, since she passed away, there's now a new chapter in the updated edition about her last 3 years.
I'm trying to think if I've got the updated
Well,
edition.
you don't, not in the hardback.
Oh,
if that's
no.
one you have. But I'll bring you a soft copy.
Oh, thank you.
Which is the updated one. They asked me to write it when she passed away. It's just like 3 pages of literally just summarising those last 3 years, because so much happened since we wrote the book. I mean, when we wrote the book, there was like 100,000 followers on social media. We now have 2.2 million. We lost 100,000 after October 7th, but that's a story for another time.
How many?
100,000. You don't want anti-Semites as your followers anyway. And I mean, we met kings and queens and princes, and we spoke all around the world, and her story reached millions of people. So there was so much that happened in those last few years. And she had a few more great-grandchildren and her great-great-grandchild. So look, there was so much.
I was going to say, because I'm sure I got to like 32 or
Exactly.
4 in the book, and you're saying 38.
Yes,
Like,
yeah. So there was a lot that happened, which I think was important to kind
Yeah.
of close that story. I mean, it's not closed because there will be more, I'm sure. But that's why I wrote that chapter. And it was also incredibly special once she'd passed away to write that and to kind of have closure for my sense.
How was it for you when she passed away?
It was incredibly difficult. I mean, I saw her every single day. My mum basically was like her carer in terms of her grandchild, so went in every day, made sure she had food. She was incredibly independent until her final year, and her mind was completely with it until her final month. So it was very difficult, someone who you spend so much time with. I mean, she was like a great grandma, but she was like, I saw her every single day. I posted about her. I know her story back to front. I feel that story sometimes in a weird sense. So it wasn't easy. I knew for a few months she became quite ill in her final weeks and months. So we knew, and she was also nearly 101. So you know that everyone's going to pass away. It wasn't a tragedy. She lived an incredible life, but it wasn't easy. And it's now just about realizing how you continue that legacy, that incredible legacy from someone who spent decades educating. How do you ensure that her story is never forgotten? And we're incredibly lucky that her book lives on people's shelves and in people's minds, and that will continue. And so her story will never be forgotten, and millions of people have seen her videos and will continue to see them. But how do you continue to share the story of someone who achieved so much in her life and who was just such an incredible person? Every single person who met her and who had the honour of meeting her or sitting beside her or sitting in an audience and hearing her was just struck by her positivity, by her light, by that look in her eyes. And I was too. And I don't think I'll ever meet someone as inspirational, as incredible as her. But we keep going in her honour and in her memory.
I'm sure she would be so proud seeing what you've achieved.
hope.
I'm sure she would. Of course she would. There's something that I want to ask you, because it's just been on my mind. Have you still got, or who's got her necklace? Because this is what I was like holding to this, that whole story. And for those, I don't know whether you want to tell what happened in the book or...
So my great-grandmother was the only survivor that went through Auschwitz with a necklace, a golden necklace, and actually a piece of jewellery that belonged to the owner at the beginning and went out with the owner. She managed to hide it in her shoes as she was in the ghetto, in her mother's shoes. Then they won the transport, 5-day grueling transport to Auschwitz, where my great-grandmother for the first time saw people dying in front of her. And then on the last day of transport, actually in July 1944, so 81 years ago to this month, my great-grandmother's mother said to her, let's swap shoes. She doesn't know why, but probably her mother knew that she was going to be killed in Auschwitz and that she had the jewellery in her shoe. So they swapped shoes. They were the same size. And when they arrived at Auschwitz, the Nazis took everything from them. My great-grandmother and her 2 sisters were sent right. Her mother, her younger sister, younger brother were sent left by Dr. Mengele, the famous angel of death, as we call him now. And when they were sent right, their hair was shaven. They were sent to have a shower. They actually did have a shower. And they were told, when you come back, your belongings will be waiting for you. Fold them nicely, put them under the bench. And all that was left was their shoes. And that was very unusual. Usually the Nazis took everything, including the shoes, but they'd run out of wooden clogs, which is what most of the inmates at Auschwitz were given. And for a number of reasons, that was terrible. Firstly, they're incredibly uncomfortable. Secondly, they gave blisters, which then got infected in the camp because they were just wooden clogs. But they had run out of these clogs. That's well documented. Auschwitz Memorial speak about this as well, because the Hungarian Holocaust, they murdered over 450,000 people in 2.5 months. So the gas chambers simply couldn't keep up, but also they couldn't keep up in terms of supply of striped clothing and the clogs. So they were given these rags, kind of grey rags, and they kept their shoes. So my great grandmother had the jewelry with her, and she would keep that every single day, make sure it was still there in her shoes. And then eventually the heel wore out, and she couldn't keep all the jewelry, but she kept 2 earrings and this necklace.
Oh, she couldn't keep all the jewelry?
No, because she wasn't able to kind of hold it all every single day. And she would, basically what she did was she would embed it in the bread, that small piece of bread that they were given every day. She would hold that bread, and the next day she would swap it over and she would eat the bread from the day before. And that's how she kept this necklace. And then the same in the slave labour. And she wore that necklace every single day. And then she passed away. And we're in the process of kind of working out which museum gets what stuff of hers, because these are historical artifacts, and it's incredibly important that these are on display for people to see. I mean, this was the only piece of golden jewellery that went through Auschwitz with its original owner. So, I mean, it's an incredible historical piece. And so it will probably go to Yad Vashem, but we'll stay tuned.
Oh, it's like that. And just reading how it was in the bread the whole time. I just don't understand how she kept it under her armpit.
And her armpit, yeah.
I don't get how, but incredible story.
Unbelievable.
There is so much I want to talk to you about. And also one thing that I definitely want to ask is a lot of Jews British people and a lot of Jews have lost a lot of faith in our government, but you're very much not in Israel, you're here. Do you think we need to be worried about our future here?
I think the current time's incredibly worrying, troubling, and I'm not surprised why so many people are thinking about making Aliyah, have already made Aliyah, are fleeing or thinking about it. It's difficult. I think firstly, within Israel needs to be a strong diaspora. That's the first thing. We need people here. We need people fighting. We need people trying to lobby the government. And again, it's easy to complain about anti-Semitism, but we should be thinking to ourselves, what are we actually doing to try and combat that? Have we emailed our MP? And you might think it doesn't help, and maybe it won't, but at least try.
When you say email, like what? Saying like what?
That you're disappointed with the way they voted on whatever motion it might be, or that you've seen this anti-Semitism, what are you going to do about it? Have you spoken to the Prime Minister? Have you spoken to the lead opposition? Like, there are things they can do, and maybe it won't help, but like, we do need to try. And we mustn't become disillusioned with that. We really should be going out there and trying to fight that fight. No one else is doing it for us. No one else is going to do it for us. We've seen that throughout history. I'm not leaving because I think I have work to do here. And again, times are troubling now, but the war will end. All wars come to an end, and it will go down. It definitely won't go down to the levels it was before, as I said earlier, but we need to try and kind of get it back to that. And I think a lot of money has been wasted by Jewish organisations and charities and individuals in interfaith activities, which clearly didn't help and have broken down, or in other programmes of education, which simply haven't worked. So we need people here to try and change that going forward. And Holocaust education, by the way, hasn't worked in the way that we hoped. So maybe that needs to change, and maybe that effort needs to kind of be focused on another way. And you asked why. I mean, we can see why. Clearly, if people learn about the Holocaust, I mean, lots of people ask why when I say that, but clearly, if people actually learned from the Holocaust and understood where unchallenged, kind of stopped hatred leads to, then they wouldn't be anti-Semitic and chanting things that they do on the streets now. So there needs to be this education. There needs to be people here that stay here to challenge that. But again, I'm not surprised, and I sympathise with loads of people who feel that they want to leave and who can only see things getting worse before they get better. And by the way, unfortunately, and I hate to say it, that's probably true. Things aren't going to get better for a while because, as I said, I mean, the wars do end, but it won't get back to the way it was for a long time. And that's incredibly difficult for some people to see. We've lived in a golden age in some ways for Jews across the world. And sometimes when I say this to people, they say we didn't before because we always experienced anti-Semitism, but we lived in a period where Jews could relatively go out about their lives in relative freedom. But that's not really the case anymore. We are being pushed to the fringes of society, and every single day we hear of worse anti-Semitic stories. And it's like, where will this stop? When is this going to end? And again, it's no surprise to me then when we have a government that seemingly isn't taking anti-Semitism very seriously. It's no surprise that people are thinking about leaving. And I think, by the way, we should make our voices heard, and we should, again, be telling our MPs these sorts of things. Imagine if 300,000 Jews packed up tomorrow and left. think about how much we contribute to this great country, this country that was so famous for its liberal, tolerant values, that welcomed in Holocaust survivors like my great-grandmother after the Holocaust. These Holocaust survivors were so proud to raise their families here, were so proud to move in, to be involved with the royal family and to meet members of parliament and to share their stories and to live in this free country where they could, again, practice their faith and beliefs and be Jewish out in the open without any anti-Semitism. And that's shattered. And so many Holocaust survivors I speak to are so disappointed and feel that that promise of never again has totally faltered and has been broken down. And that promise of never again was not just never again will there be Auschwitz or gas chambers or a Holocaust. It's never again would ordinary people stand idly by as this hatred was running rampant and raising its ugly head again through society. And we're seeing hundreds of thousands of people not only stay silent and not come to our support, but also actively being involved in these marches. And people that I sat with in my university lecture only a few days before October 7th that were so nice to me are now the most anti-Semitic people, or even if they're not anti-Semitic, they're going along with these anti-Semites like kind of useless idiots.
Yeah.
And it's those people that, again, firstly we need to try and reach and change their minds, but also that I'm so disappointed by, and that those Holocaust survivors feel so let down by.
Yeah. I've seen friends that have just said the most bizarre things, or they're posting, I think I remember asking them, please can you not say that word, and please can you, because you don't know the damage that it's doing. Like, we could all foresee a little bit of what was happening, but not on this scale.
Yeah, and I think, by the way, that feeling of being let down by friends is similar to what a lot of those Holocaust survivors felt in those early years when their neighbours turned on them, and when the people that they played with a few days earlier were the ones who informed on them and allowed the Nazis to come and knock on their door and say, right, you've got to pack up all your things and go to the ghettos. It's a similar feeling when today I was sat in a lecture hall a few days before October 7th with these people who I considered friends, and now, again, as I say, I hate to say it, but are like the worst anti-Semites. And it's difficult, and kind of you think to yourself, well, how could this have been? Were these people ever really my friends, or did they think this before, or have they just been indoctrinated by evil propagandists online?
Well, we had Hem Mazig here, and he was saying, like, this is how it happens. Like, they spread, and they have bots that spread certain things.
And it's sponsored by Iran and Qatar and other countries too.
Yeah.
And it's incredibly dangerous.
It's hard to believe, though. I sit there and go, really? Is this really, are people that bad that they do this? It's hard for me to get my head around. And I saw, just to make light of the situation, of a terrible situation, I saw you posting "throw the Jew down the well," and Sacha Baron Cohen reposted that. That did make me giggle.
I mean, that was after Glastonbury. I mean, sometimes you have to laugh, otherwise you're going to cry. I mean, by the way, a lot of people, I think, have been focusing on the wrong thing about Glastonbury. What he said was terrible, and it was genocidal chant, and it was incredibly frightening that he can go on the Glastonbury main stage and that BBC would air this at the taxpayers' money. The most dangerous thing was that tens of thousands of people in the crowd joining in without realising what they were saying, without actually even questioning, oh, why wouldn't I repeat what you were saying? That's the most dangerous thing. It's dangerous that the BBC were parroting this, and it's wrong, and they shouldn't do it at taxpayers' money. And there's so much to say about the BBC, and I'm happy to speak about it. But the most dangerous thing there was all these people who joined in without questioning it and without understanding it.
Yeah.
And again, those are like those same type of people, which is like, they just kind of read this stuff online and they're like, yes, that's right. Or they don't even question it. And that's what social media is. I mean, you're presented with this information. You don't even question whether it's real or not.
Yeah.
And that's why it's so dangerous. But social media is also an incredibly powerful tool, and we need to use it in the right way.
Okay. What should I do? What do you want me to do? How should I speak out?
Well, you do it already, but like, people just should be using their social media platforms, should be using their voices. It's not easy, and there's so much anti-Semitism, there's so much hatred, but like, we're all here to support you. I'm sure you and I would be happy to help those who are starting out in their journeys. Just DM all the other Jewish creators. Look, it's one family, and we're all happy to help. But we need you to join this fight. There are so few of us. We're outnumbered. We're outgunned as well. And we're outfunded, by the way, as well. So they have all these bots.
Oh, but I thought we are rich and
exactly.
have everything.
And we control the media.
Yeah,
I mean,
absolutely.
if we controlled the media, the BBC wouldn't be presenting the facts in the way that they do. But look, they have so many more resources than we do. They've been investing in this for years. We're just starting, but we need your help. So join in and try and do what you can.
And do you think we need to be posting specifically about anti-Semitic stuff, or we need to be like just anything Jewish, like, oh, I'm making challah?
Everyone will do their own thing. I think we need to also post Jewish joy. I always speak about this. It's the same in the book. It's like, I speak about my great-grandmother's love for Judaism, for religious festivals, to have a Jewish family, etc. Like, that's part and parcel of who we are, and we should share that. because the Jews can offer so much to humanity and also in terms of life. I mean, in the West right now, those values of life and those values of family are kind of so down the drain, if you will. And we need to be promoting those as well. But besides that, we also do need to be posting about anti-Semitism, about Israel, about the truth of what's happening, because if not, that truth gets lost. And that the mainstream media is not going to show it. So again, it's up to us. And you might feel that you're not having cut through, but trust me, all you need is to impact one person, as I said earlier, and that one person can go and tell another and another. And before you know it, your one post has made a real difference.
Okay, I'm on it. Let's get on it. Actually, talking of Jewish identity and making challah, we're meant to be feeding you. Has our food arrived? Our food has not arrived. Well, we do need to talk about why you don't like falafel, though.
Well,
why don't you like falafel?
My food palate is like a baby.
Your what? Your food?
My palate.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I eat very limited foods.
Okay.
Something
like
I don't
what?
speak
Like
about on
what?
social media. I like very basic chicken, schnitzel.
Okay.
Like,
any vegetables?
not many.
Dov, if you're going to be like this world-renowned speaker, we need to get you eating your vegetables, please. Just a couple.
Well, this is the danger of going on a podcast with a nutritionist.
This is.
Well, no, I have eaten falafel before.
Okay.
I just don't love it.
That's okay. We'll let you off the falafel, but you do need to be eating vegetables,
yes,
like five different colours a day. Okay, please take this. If you're going to take one thing away, I've got to inspire one person.
I'll send you DMs of my food.
Will you do that?
Well,
please send me pictures. And before, I mean, the food's not here, so I will owe you a food date. So bear with me, and I'm sorry. One thing that I did want to ask you about, or maybe we could play a little game if you'd be up for it.
Happy to.
We want to play, let me see if Mark can get it ready, a little game of guess the singer and song.
Okay, I'm not very good at this, but we can try.
I have a feeling you might be quite good. Let's hope, right. We're going to start
the singer
with this.
And
yeah.
song. Oh, this is me. Oh no. How did you find this? Oh no.
So I was doing a bit of research. Thank you very much, Mark.
Oh, that's embarrassing.
Yes. Well, I couldn't not ask you about this. I thought, well, this is going to be different because we don't really hear you talk about this before. Previous life as a singer?
Well, I used to sing when I was in school. I did grade 7 singing.
Oh, wow.
I used to do like musical theatre. That was also like a way to channel my ADHD. I really loved it and it was great. I also used to sing, by the way. This I never speak about, but it's actually quite incredible. I sang in a group called the Four Sons. There were 4 of us. Actually, there were 5 by the end. And it started as something without me when there were just 4 of them and then 1 left, and then I joined to sing at bar mitzvahs and their own bar mitzvahs, the 4 of them. And then everyone was like, oh, can you sing at our bar mitzvahs? It was an a cappella group that went around synagogues on Shabbat to sing at bar mitzvahs and bat mitzvahs and weddings, etc. Or just in shuls on Shabbat. And because it was a cappella, you could do it on Shabbat or any time of the year. And I joined, and we kind of went around hundreds of Jewish events, and we raised over £75,000 for charity.
Wow.
We didn't take a penny; it was all for charity. We raised money for high cancer care, and for Water Aid, and for Jewish care. And yeah, I mean, it was quite incredible. I never really spoke about that. So that was like my first intro to music, and I was like the lead singer, if you will, when I was younger. And then I did musical theatre when I was in secondary school, and I really enjoyed it. I love singing, but I've parked that career for now.
No, bring it back. You should sing about anti-Semitism. Well, maybe you can make
I did actually see a rap.
It.
Someone had like made this rap about anti-Semitism the other week. It popped up on my Instagram. It was quite innovative, a new way to educate. But yeah, you're the first person that's like raised that with me.
Good. An inside scoop. But I was like, he's got some pipes on him.
No.
It's great. I was
that
like,
video
this
is like
is
awful.
definitely him. No, don't. It's brilliant. I was like, this has to be him. But how amazing. So do you still sing?
Not really. So I stopped with the Four Sons before I finished school, like when I was doing GCSEs before COVID. They continued. They still sing at bar and bat mitzvahs and at weddings and at shuls, and they do incredible work for charity. Incredible group of people who, by the way, taught me a lot about charity work and leadership. And at a young age, I was going out to bar and bat mitzvahs and meeting people, and it was a kind of very formative experience for me. And I think it helped me a lot with my people skills, etc. But again, I love doing these things. Like I loved going on stage and performing. So you asked earlier about speaking. I've loved
you
doing
failed
this
to
from a very
mention
young
that bit, didn't
you? So that's the first thing. But also, I mean, just in school as well, that was a big way for me to channel my ADHD. Like I would go and go out of class for 1 hour and sing and like use a lot of energy on that. So I loved it. But again, as I say, I've parked that for now. I don't think I'll return to it, but I still sing, like not publicly, but like I love music. I think music is like an incredible way to firstly de-stress and just kind of get away from things, but also it's just, I love music.
Yeah, it's very healing music.
Exactly.
I think. Well, that was, if we Google the Four Sons, will we find you?
Yeah, you should do.
On it. I'm on it now. Well, not right
It's
now,
like the
but
Four
I'm going to
Sons
do it.
in one word. And 4 is like the number.
Okay. Oh, okay.
Yeah, just do like the Four Sons music. You'll find it somehow.
Brilliant. Do you know what? It's something to be so proud of, like that. You didn't just say, well, I'm a good singer and I enjoy singing. You've literally, again, you've just taken something and turned it into something amazing.
Well, it wasn't my
idea.
It was like they were doing it before and I joined them. But no, together we did quite incredible work. When I look at, like, we were a group of teenagers who went around hundreds of Jewish events, sold hundreds of CDs of our music and raised tens of thousands of pounds for charity in the process. But I think people love that idea of like young Jews going out and raising money. And again, it shows you like at a very young age you can do big things, and it doesn't need to be like having millions of followers on social media. You can do whatever your talent might be. You can go out, you can make an impact, and again, people were so nice to us and they gave us so much support, and so many people hired us when I'm sure they could have hired better singers, but because of the work that we were doing for charity.
You're so inspirational.
Yeah.
What a mensch. But you are, like, you've done so much good work, and what's the future? What's the future hold?
People always ask this. Like, I'm not sure. I've got another year of uni, so I've got to focus on that. I work in Parliament part-time for the opposition. I used to work in the government. Then there was the election. The Conservatives lost. So I work in the opposition, doing social media strategy, writing some speeches, doing research, etc. So I do that. And then we'll see. I do know for certain that no matter what I do in the future, if it's finance, law, politics, whatever it might be, I'll continue to use my voice however I can, and my platform and my writing, whatever it might be, to share the truth and to stand up for the Jewish people and to make sure that the Holocaust is never forgotten, and more modern day tragedies and hate as well, because I think it's so important. As I said, there are so few people that are doing this. So whatever I do, I'll continue doing that and continue using my voice and my energy in that way. And again, that's the other message, which is like, you don't need to be doing this full time. You can do it on the side, and it's not easy, and people are scared of losing their jobs, which I understand and is fine. But those who can should be doing this and should be standing up, and we need you. I know I keep saying this, but we do. Yeah. We're so outnumbered and it's so difficult on social media, but please, if you can, just join the fight.
100%. And when can we vote for you for Prime Minister?
Well.
It will happen. I can see it now.
No,
will you?
I enjoy what I do in politics now, but we'll see what I do in the future.
Perfect. And before we let you go, where can everybody find you that doesn't already follow you?
Dov Forman, DOVFORMAN on most social media platforms, and you can buy the book Lily's Promise, and that's all about my great grandmother's testimony, how she survived Auschwitz, how she found the strength to live, and how she clung onto that hope. So like that, it would mean so much if you read it.
Perfect. You've been absolutely amazing, and I can't wait to see what's next. Thank you so much.
It's been a pleasure to be here, and I'm looking forward to watching the other episodes.
Yes, you must. Make sure you subscribe. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay, the food's here. Yay! Hi, Zev.
Hello.
How are you?
Good.
This is my good friend Dov Forman.
Nice to meet you.
This is Zev from Balagan.
How are you doing?
I would stand up, but I've got a microphone in my way. So.
Have you been to Balagan in Boreham Wood?
I have. Well, yeah. I have.
So you know how good the food is.
It's very good. Good schnitzel.
Ah, yes. Well, because you don't like falafel, we thought we'd have to order you some schnitzel.
Wow.
Amazing. Thank you so much.
Hummus.
But this is a first, eating on camera.
Yes. Well, this wouldn't be a Jewish podcast,
True.
and I wouldn't be a Jewish woman without feeding my guests. So absolutely needs to happen. Thank you. Oh, what's that? That's new.
This is sweet chili.
Oh, lovely. Thank you so much.
Something new to add today.
What's inside?
Moroccan cigars.
Ooh. Now, you said you've got very basic taste.
Yeah, this is good.
You would do Moroccan cigars?
Well,
Oh.
So they used to be much more spicy than they are now, but we had to tone it down because people don't really do spicy.
That's true.
Well, we
Especially
had,
Ashkenazis.
yeah, I was going to say we had Zach.
Tone it down.
We had Zach Marks on the podcast, and he was like saying that he just makes a joke about being Ashkenazi and just not being able to tolerate
Yeah, no,
spice.
I'm probably the same.
I keep calling him Zach Margolin, but we know him
I love
as
Zach Mars.
It's so
We
funny.
went to the same school.
Oh, you did?
He's a lot older than me.
What school did you go to?
I went to Emmanuel.
Ah, okay. I grew up in Bushy.
Oh, there we go.
Small world. Thank you so much.
You're very welcome.
Out of this, what's your favourite?
Me,
Yeah.
you can never go wrong with schnitzel.
Yeah.
It's true.
Not really a big fan of salad, but
No, neither.
Oh, for goodness sake, boys, you need to
Yeah.
eat your vegetables. Okay.
Yeah, Moroccan cigars, fantastic. I love them.
Okay.
I would like it more spicy, but
Okay. So I have this rule. I'm basically gluten free, but when something comes out like Moroccan cigars, I feel like the absolute it would be horrific to all of the Jewish nation if I didn't
Moroccan
try one.
cigars,
So
very good hummus and tahina.
okay, this has to happen. Thank you
There
so
you go.
much.
Thank
Thank
you.
you so much.
Nice to meet you.
See you
And we'll
later,
see you in
Zev.
Malaga.
Looking forward to it.
So for those of you that want to go and check out Balagan, please go to Boreham Wood. They're on the high street. They have the best food. They have everything from schnitzel to falafel and salads. And if you
And
say
Moroccan cigars.
and Moroccan cigars, yeah, absolutely. And if you use the code or just say in there what the falafel podcast, they will give you 10% off your food. So make sure you check it out. So right, we have to tuck in. So we can move that on.
There we go.
Let's see.